Hey everyone, in this video I'll be explaining to you what an essentialist is and giving you some top tips on how to be the best essentialist possible. So what is essentialism? Essentialism is a philosophy of time management basically. It is a very efficient way of managing your time so that you get the most bang for your buck and at the same time you manage to have a ton more free time than a lot of other people that are just struggling. So this is based off the book Essentialism. It is probably one of the best books on time management that I have ever read. And the number two would be The One Thing by Gary Keller. And I will leave all the details about these books in the description of this video. So essentialism is something that is not to be confused with minimalism. There is a niche community of people who call themselves minimalists. And, I've definitely taken some principles and philosophies from the minimalist group, but they're not exactly the same thing as a essentialist. So a minimalist is someone who basically will only buy and hold on to the things that they deem necessary. And I think it's a very interesting way of looking at things, and I think it's very useful in terms of personal finance. So many people complain that, oh, I don't have time or money for vacation, and you look around their living room and it's filled with all sorts of stuff that costs hundreds of dollars. A plush toy, a $10,000 couch, all these accessories and trinkets. It's like if you didn't buy all that stuff, you probably would have more money to spend. It's not necessarily a lack of earning. Sometimes it's just the fact that you can't control your spending. So I wouldn't consider myself a minimalist, but I have taken certain principles from that group. Now, an essentialist isn't something that's niche or weird like that. It's really just a term that was coined by the book Essentialism. And I would say a great example of an essentialist is Warren Buffett. He has been one of the richest people in the world and the richest person in the world on and off for many, many decades now. And basically what he does is he buys, owns, and invests in well-known, reputable, long-lasting companies. So companies like Geico and Coca-Cola and so forth. And so Warren Buffett, he's a very well-known billionaire, and he is the epitome of essentialism. And he has revealed that numerous times himself and through a lot of interviews by Bill Gates. Bill Gates has mentioned stories about this. So I want to give you some pieces of advice and examples from Warren Buffett that will help you manage your time much, much better. And I guarantee you this will really just blow up your world. Like, this is incredible stuff. So one thing Warren Buffett does really well is he says no to everything he deems not essentially useful. So he doesn't have any meetings. He doesn't do anything that's unproductive. He pretty much stacks his time on the number one most productive thing and says no to all the rest. By doing so, he clears up his calendar for a lot of free time as well as a lot of time for him to do what he deems the most important, which is usually him in his own room, reading periodicals, annual reports, books, newspapers, and so forth. Now, does this mean that Warren Buffett doesn't have a lot of stuff he could do? No, he has thousands of things that he could do. He gets constant requests for appearances, meetings, he gets tons of proposals, all this stuff, but he has people who will clear things out, prevent people from bugging him, and he is very sharp on what's essential and what is not. And by doing so, he has cleared out a lot of his calendar. Bill Gates has mentioned this numerous times, and he said that he learned a lot from Warren Buffett after meeting him because uh, Warren Buffett literally clears out his calendar and really has really taught Bill Gates how that you have to do only the things that are essentially crucial. And the huge problem with a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs is that they get pulled in so many directions. So many of them are caught in the storm of doing 1,000 things, myself included. I've fallen into this. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to jump onto Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, this, that. And guess what? 99% of the time, most of that stuff is not worth the time you're investing into it. A lot of it is sometimes resulting in very insubstantial returns. And you have to have the wherewithal to drop that and work on what's working and double down on what's working. Now, it gets a little bit more complicated because some things take persistence. And you know that if you put more time into it and you consistently put out stuff, it will eventually yield very fruitful results, kind of like farming. So one of those things is YouTube. But the difference was that I knew that certain other things were not worth my time or effort because I wasn't interested enough. And even if I put in, a year's worth of work, I probably wouldn't see much results out of them. So Twitter or Snapchat would be two examples. The next thing is Warren Buffett's test. Now, he has used this on his own air pilot, as stories go. So his own air pilot for his personal jet was talking to Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett's like a very friendly, jovial, kind of guy. And basically, the pilot was saying how he wanted to start his own business and all this stuff. And Warren Buffett said, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to list out your top 10 priorities, your top 10 goals for your future. And so the pilot did so. And he said, now, from number 2 all the way down to number 10, I want you to guess what he said. He said, I want you to avoid them at all costs. They are your worst distractions. So here's the thing about that second story and that second piece of advice. There hasn't been any real reputable proof that this is actually Warren Buffett who said this, but there's been a lot of stories that have been pretty much all referencing Warren Buffett to this claim. Now, I don't know if it's true, but it is really reminiscent of something Warren Buffett would say. And I would say it is very interesting because sometimes the biggest distractions to your biggest goals are not something far off, like your number 20 priority. What Warren Buffett is supposedly saying in this story is that your true biggest distractions are your number 2, 3, 4, and 5 priorities. These are things that have enough weight to distract you from your biggest goal because they're important enough. Not your number 20 priority because it's not important enough, so it won't usually distract you that much. So keep these things in mind, and it could revolutionize your business, your life, your productivity, your career, your academics, and so forth. So I recommend you check out the book Essentialism. And I'll throw in a little bonus. So this is called the grid technique. There's a bunch of different other names for it. And I believe it was mentioned in Gary Keller's book, The One Thing. Again, all the details will be in the description of this video. But basically, how it works is that you break a big rectangle into 4 quadrants. Now, the quadrants are different categorizations of your goals and how you prioritize them. So the first quadrant is urgent and important. The second quadrant is urgent but not important. The third quadrant is not urgent but important. And the fourth quadrant is not important and not urgent. So what should you do here? Well, basically, you should concentrate all your efforts on the first quadrant and ignore all the rest. First, you have to categorize everything, because sometimes you think you know, you assume that this is in this quadrant, and if it's all in your head, it's really a mess. But if you write it down on paper, you will succinctly categorize and really figure out, well, is this priority in this quadrant or that one? So basically, write this out on a piece of paper, put all your goals and priorities in each of these quadrants, and simply chase the ones that are important and urgent first. After you have finished those, then you can move on to things that are important but not urgent. Once you finish those, you're pretty much good to go, because you really don't want to chase the other categories like urgent but not important. These are simply distractions, and the biggest key is first identifying them. And then the last quadrant, like not important and not urgent, I mean, heck, by then, like, if you have the free time, go ahead and do it. But arguably, are they really not important at that point? Like, fun is important. So, I mean, that last quadrant, depending on how you look at it, like, you pretty much ignore that whole thing. The key is first categorizing it, though, because the biggest issue is the fact that you don't realize that certain things are not important until you categorize it. So, thank you so much for watching this entire video. I hope it provided you some value, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.